everyone. Welcome to another episode of Getting to the Bottom Line, where my goal is to help put into perspective different things that impact your revenue, profit, and cash flow. My name is Stephanie Smith, owner of New Light Financial Solutions, where we offer outsourced CFO services to help business owners generate more cash in their business. And I'm really excited to have on my show today Emily, who is a PowerPoint design expert and guru, and we're going to have a great conversation about that. So thank you for joining me on my show today, Emily.
Oh, it's so nice to be here. Thanks, Stephanie, for having me. I'm excited to chat with you.
I am passionate about this topic just because I have a history in it, but I'm so excited and interested to hear your point of view on all of this. But before we dive into that, tell me a little bit about yourself and what you do and what your business and what you're doing.
Totally. So I am a visual storyteller and I specialize in PowerPoint design. So I have a magical knack of simplifying complex information to help business leaders, owners, presenters, anybody who has a story to tell, better communicate and articulate that to their audience. In the end, when we can have an engaged and informed audience, then we know that we're driving business success and we're impacting decisions to lead on the way that we want. I work from internal communications to external to keynotes, presentations, quarterly updates. As you say, the idea of finance and data is so critical in how businesses operate and just how they inform key stakeholders along the way. And so with the right touch of visual design, balance, and streamlining your story, you can really make the impact that you are looking for to keep your audience, along and move your business forward.
That makes complete sense. And I feel like we, as business owners and people in business, have so many presentations that we create. And I think a lot of the times people forget about the storytelling aspect of it, especially when it comes to data. I can't tell you how many designs or presentations that I've seen that's just numbers, a ton of numbers on slides. And it's hard to read and it's hard to understand what the point is. So I try, even with my clients, to simplify things as much as I can. And the whole concept of visual design when it comes to data visualization. So I know this is really important, but I would love to hear from you. What are some of the benefits that people have from having good storytelling and design in their presentations?
Yeah, so that's an awesome question. I love that. I have so many answers, but I'll start with the idea that I think we all seek to have authentic connections, right? We want to create trust. We want to create credibility. That's how we know we can move businesses. We can make decisions. We can get the investments and the finances and the confidence we need to do the things that we love. And storytelling allows that when you bring that into your presentations. It allows you to create those authentic, credible, and trusted kind of connections so that you can have a real conversation versus just speaking with somebody. So in that end, right, we're seeking kind of a human universal truth. I always go back to the idea that I have a 5-year-old daughter who can't read but loves looking at books, right? She reads books because the power of a strong visual to create empathy, to create connection, to create a story allows her to see the story come to life, and she gets engaged and she gets excited. So in a very simple way, right? Bring that back to what you're doing with your financial solutions, right? If you can create and tell a story and get somebody engaged, they're so much more likely just to be invested and to care and to want to move forward. We also have this amazing brain of ours. And when we can tell stories with visuals, when we can use visuals in a presentation, you are 65% more likely to retain information than when it's just copy alone. So just that fact of the ability to add images or design intently to tell your story, right, allows your audience to remember the parts and the things that are really important. And then when it comes to data and numbers and status or statuses, I should say, sometimes it's also like too much information. When it, like you said, when it's just copy or it's just a bunch of numbers, I don't know what to digest. But when I can highlight what I need or what my main point is, and the visual supports all of the words that the speaker is saying versus me reading them, again, I'm engaged, I'm listening, I understand. And you allow the speaker, the business leader, he can, or she, I should say, they can be the conversation conductor. They lead that they lay down the beats, they put in the tunes, right? And as an audience, you're engaged and you're listening and you're following along. So in the end, when you get to that end point where you're waiting for what's the desire, whatever your action that you need or your business decision is needed, everybody's there with you. And so there's so much power in stepping back to really strategize in terms of how to tell your story from a visual perspective.
Yeah, I love you like dropped so many gems in that one statement, but I love that you made the analogy with your daughter reading books, because my son's the same way. Like he struggles a little bit with reading, but if you can put a good picture in there with it, like he can read a lot better and he understands what's happening a lot better if you just put a picture in there. So I get that wholeheartedly with what's going on with my life. But just in general, and I think everyone has a little bit of a different preference, right? But I do like the visuals in my presentations as well that I watch. And I don't want you to read all the words off the slide to me. Like I want you to tell a really good story. So I love that. And I can't believe you said the statistic for how much more you can remember by
Yeah,
having visuals.
65%. Isn't that
That's
crazy?
crazy. So we all
Yeah.
need to do better at that. But just rolling with my thoughts in my head here. I'm thinking like if I'm doing selling with presentations, I imagine too, like if you can tell a good story while you're doing a sales presentation, you're probably more likely to close more deals that way if you can help people go along that storyline, right? Have you done any sales presentations?
Yes, I do help a lot of sales companies. And again, I think internally too, sometimes you have to sell in what where your product is in a journey. If you're in, especially like I work a lot in pharma. So with pharma, it's like drugs and like where they are in the process. And you have to continue to sell that into the organization so that they continue to invest in it. And it makes such an impact and such a difference. Again, who you're talking to and the amount of information that they need to know is critical to how you tell that story. They're on my website, and I know you'll have a link, but I have a resource of my 4 tips for crafting strong presentations. I'm honest and I understand that not everybody has the time or money to invest in a customized design presentation, but we can all be a little bit more intentional. And my goal is to help other people learn so that they can do it. And when they have the right funds or resources and they can reach out to me, I'm always happy to help. But like you said, knowing your audience is the first step. So we talked about telling the right story, but then it's when you write your story, it's also crafting that in a proper way. And I'm not inventing the wheel. I don't know. I don't write the stories, but I will refine them. But my philosophy is you start with the end in mind, and then you set the beginning, the middle, and the end again, because when you can lead somebody along and again, let them know what they're expecting, why they're here, what you need them to do at the end. If you set that up at the beginning, it makes more sense as you present. To your point, you're more likely to get the results you want at the end, to have those sales. I don't unfortunately have the data to say before I designed a presentation, this was their sales, and after, obviously there's a lot of variables, but I can tell you that I know that there are missed opportunities that clients have said to me where they miss out on sales because they think they didn't have the right presentation. Now they can't go back and make it and compare, but a $5,000 investment for a $30 million project is really small change when you think about that. And I think it aligns to what you're doing, right? When you can help CFOs simplify their processes and give them more time and more money, right? But that you do need to make that investment in order to see the potential. So it's fun that it's limitless. I am eager to find more data. I am a data geek, and so I'm working on that. But it is hard because it's just so variable based on all the other inputs that I don't always have access to.
And then I think that's very understandable, right? And marketing in general, sometimes you can't tell what your ROI is, but I just know like when you're having a conversation with someone, you can completely miss what story you're trying to tell, right? If you're looking at a slide and your story or the point you want to make isn't clear, they're going to make up their own story in their head. That's what we do as humans, right? So, uh,
Yes.
it's so essential to make sure whatever you're presenting is exactly what you want them to think, because otherwise they're going to make up something different potentially. So I think there probably is a lot of lost opportunities, like you said, just based on the presentations that are created and presented.
Yeah. And like you said, we're going to make up stories. when you listen, right? And especially in like a presentation, like you're not waiting to answer, you're kind of like just part of there. So your brains automatically are going a million places. There's always something on our mind. So, so they're going to do it naturally. So if you can lead them, if you can have emphasize those key importance, at least when they come back or when they go off on their tangents, it's based on what you're sharing versus, they're kind of lost. So yeah, visuals do such a great job of honing us in. To your point, even some of my best practice tips are like less is more on a slide in order to allow people to not run off. That's why, like, if you can have all your words on a slide and you just read verbatim, like usually what people do is they read ahead and then they're in their own world. So if you can guide them along, so your voiceover and your story is not exactly what's on the slide enhances that, elevates it, or calls out those key important things, you really, to your point, are allowing your audience to stay engaged. And the stories that they create or the way they're listening is about what your topic is. Less is more for sure, consistency and simplicity, right? I'd rather see more slides, things change on a slide during a presentation, so that I can digest the information, than to have fewer slides with a lot on there. Again, we can only intake so much information before we kind of move on. And so my whole goal is to help my clients, who are the leaders, the presenters, the speakers, be more confident and tell their story in a more connected way for their audience. Because when you can really, kind of connect with them is when the success happens.
I love that so much. And I have so many questions I feel like I want to ask you. So I'm just going to ask some of them.
Yeah, bring them.
Okay, what is your opinion on like pictures, like actual photos in presentations versus like graphic design, something that's doodle,
like an illustration
versus an illustration. I might have said doodle. Illustration's a better word versus, clip art that still
Yep.
exists today. I'd love to know
Yeah,
what
I
should
think
people
they're all
use?
great options, right? Like, but again, it comes down to consistency. So icons, clip art. Well, clip art I think is a little different than icons, but clip art I think would go kind of in the illustration standpoint. If that is where your style is, bring it forward. Use it. Be consistent. If photography is where you want to play, use it. Be consistent in how you pick pictures, the styling, maybe the people in them. You don't want to feel like all these pictures are shot from different perspectives. That creates confusion. You want to create consistency and cohesiveness. The beautiful part is a lot of times, and even in like free resources online or in stock houses, you can kind of look at collections of things, and it's important. You can tell when things are different, but when they feel the same, that helps your story create that consistency. That goes with icons, that goes with illustrations or clip art styling. I know I just did a presentation for a friend who used a lot of Bitmojis. So that's the new style of clip art, but because he was consistent and it made sense with the way he is and his approach and his attitude, it worked. Now, if we would have thrown in a random image or a clip art, that would have felt off, right? So you have to have the right consistency. Visualizations are important, but again, you choose what you need based on who your audience is, what your story is about, and what you need them to do. If you're looking for a sales pitch, a high investment, kind of conversation that has a lot of money behind it, clip arts and illustrations kind of if they're not done right, they can look cheap. They can look inauthentic. That's where higher end photography and having that synergy, you create more of a brand feel and an experience for your audience. So I think they all have great space. It's just, can you be strategic and intentional based on what you're doing, what you're saying, who you're talking to? And then once you pick it, run with it, and don't doubt and like add more. Again, same as like, don't add too many words, don't add too much information. Or too many different variables, I should say.
And you mentioned brand, how much, I'd like to know from your opinion, how the things that you design, like, impact your brand. Do you help people with that? Like, I want to align your presentations to your brand.
100%.
Yeah.
Like, you have to, again, you want to come off and you want to seem established and credible and trusted and knowledgeable, right? You want to be the subject expert, and people perceive that and they see it. Now, I'll say the funny thing to me is I find that good brands, you don't know, you notice really good brands, but you actually remember the like, you remember when you get confused, you don't necessarily know the brand, but like, you know, when it doesn't feel good. So it's like a well-designed presentation doesn't always get the same conversations about, oh my God, that was so beautiful. You have the conversation about, oh my God, tell me more about what happened in this quarter, because that's really interesting. How do I capture that, right? How do I move forward with that? Tell me what you guys learned when you did this research, because I'm seeing the data, I'm seeing the impact that it had. Let's talk about that. A bad design conversation is going to say, or a bad present, they're going to miss even that, what that keynote was. And so you elevate that experience. So brand badges are important. What we look like on the outside, it's the same way as like, you want to visually, right? The way we dress, you don't show up in your sweats to a big meeting. You show up as a professional, and that's what your brand should do. It should come to life. So when you can create synergies, when people see you on your website, or they see something that you've sent, and then you show up with a presentation that aligns to it, again, our minds are going to connect that visually again, and it makes it so much easier, just to create that foundation of trust.
Yeah. And having this conversation makes me think of some of the presentations that I've watched of different people at different brands. And someone I follow puts a lot of GIFs in their presentations and keeps it simple, but that's like totally on personality for her.
Yes.
And she's just that, then her GIFs are always humorous and funny. Right. And, so I think it does, making sure it aligns makes sense, but just taking the time to think about what presentations you've seen from other people and how that makes you feel about them might be a good place to start for someone just looking maybe to get an idea of what they should do for themselves. But it got me this conversation got me thinking about that. So I like that.
I think presentations are kind of like conversations, right? They're the ability to connect with somebody in a more personal and kind of relational experience, where marketing is like, you're just being shouted at. So if you think about every presentation that you're actually having conversations with people, so you want to engage with them, you want to create something that they can align to, that they can hold on to, and then get that ability for them to ask questions, you're driving success. It's so much easier, to your point, like in a sales meeting, to have a strong conversation. If you just talk at somebody, you're going to lose them. So I think there's some, to your point about like listening, or who you trust, and who you like to follow, who you look at. I mean, when I think of well-designed stuff, I think of Target, right? Like, it's simple, it's consistent. Even when they bring in their collaborations, it still feels on brand for them. And so when you can own that, or you own your space and you're confident in it, it's you really, like, sky's the limit.
I love that. I love that a lot. I want to ask this one question, but what are your thoughts about animations in presentations?
Again, when it's strategically done right, it's awesome. When they support your voiceover, your story, building something creates anticipation, it creates engagement, it creates interest. You're changing up things on the screen, and your mind gets involved. Subtle animations are important. But again, to the same point of like, you could have all these different types of image styles. Animations are important too. Simple, consistent. If you have a style of how your pages change, use that, in a very intentional way. Doesn't have to be on every slide, but you don't want to have every slide feel different. You don't want every type of animation to be a different one. You want to create synergies. Again, it creates excitement. If it's overdone, it's boring. If it's totally out of whack, you can't follow it. So there's a really sweet spot. Less is more, consistency and simplicity when it comes to anything with designing a presentation.
I had worked for someone once who learned animations and power. This was long time ago. He said, look what I knew, figured out how to do. And then he's like, everything's like twirling around on the slides and coming in. I was like, you can't do that.
I mean, our brain's like, it's cluttered information, right? Like, it's like you get like decision fatigue of like where to look, and you shut down. So we don't know how to process that. Yeah. We can only really retain information, right, in sequential order. So
yeah,
if animation leads that, it's awesome.
Yeah. I like that. Simple. I feel the theme of this conversation is keep it simple. Just
simple
in general,
and consistent.
no matter what you're doing. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have, let me ask one more question. When it comes to like keeping someone's attention, do you have any kind of recommendation for like how often you should change slides or stay in a slide before you like move on to another topic, or I know online, you're having meetings online. It's distracting, right? We're all distracted with everything that's going on in the world. So how do you keep people engaged in your presentation?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I don't have like any best practices because I don't do a lot of presentation coaching in terms of like
Mhm.
time sequence, but I can say it from a visual standpoint that I believe, right? Like you want to have more slides with less on them is going to be better because you're going to be able to tell your point and move on. Even one point per slide, right? If you talk at a slower pace and it supports your voiceover and what you're saying, that works. You never want to have more than 3 things on a slide. So again, you're not going to sit on the slide for like forever and ever, unless it's like a question, right? Or like in anything. So keeping things less on a slide, 2 to 3 main points. I even say like ideally, if you could have most 30 words on a slide, you only are going to talk about a topic for so long then so that you can move on. Breaking things apart, is a really great way. So if you're talking about like planning and you look at quarters, you can set up that general, here's the 4 quarters, here's what we're going to emphasize in our business in these 4 quarters on one slide, and then break that down. Don't go into any more detail on that slide. Then the next slide should be all about quarter 1, and you can talk about the 3 top things you're going, right? So all of a sudden you just took one slide that maybe is your whole presentation and you've made it 5, and you're giving people space to change it up. Our brains also need that, not only to digest it, but just so we stay focused, right? You need something to like shift you. I'm narcoleptic as a secret. And so like, I definitely am visually stimulated. So, even rotating a page in a book helps me like do an action. So we want to help people stay engaged as best we
Stay
can.
engaged. Yeah, I love that. I think it's even more true now that it is like everyone's used to scrolling. You're just scrolling, right? Like we need to get to the next point and keep engaged. So I think that's a great tip. So this has been a great conversation, and I could ask you lots more questions because I just like to talk about presentations as well. And I think it's really important. But I want to know if anyone listening today, if there's one thing that you would really want them to know and take away from this conversation that they can maybe get started with right away, or just something simple that they could implement, what would you tell them?
Yep, simplicity and consistency. Less is more. So when you can really simplify what you're saying and then be consistent across all your slides, you're really going to elevate that. Those 2 intentions can really make a big difference in your presentation.
I love it. And I want to say like my takeaway is what the stat, 65%, you'll remember 65% more if you have a good image or visuals to go with your slides. So
Yeah,
stop
I love that you
stop
forgot about that.
putting just text on slides. We all need visuals, right? So long as they're simplistic and consistent, like you said. So
Yes.
I love that. But if someone wanted to learn more about you and what you do, or hire you per se, because I think that would be a good idea if they've got a presentation they're working on, where can they find you?
Yes. So the best place to find me is on my website at IamEmilySchneider.com. I'm also super active on LinkedIn. So you can search and find me as there as well. Always happy to engage with new clients. I love meeting people.
Yes, I will put those in the show notes as well so people can find you. And if you're looking for more information about me and my company, you can find us online at www.newlightfs.com. But that's all I have for today for this episode. I want to say thank you all for joining us today. Thank you, Emily, for coming on the show. And I hope you all join me for the next episode. We will see you
Thanks so
later.
much, Stephanie. It was so nice to
Thanks.
chat with you. Have a good day.
Bye.